All right, class, this is going to be a short video. You noticed we are in week 2, and in the week 2 DQ number 2, the question's asking you about relative frequencies. Excuse me. So definitely frequencies are coming up in this unit. And you'll notice in your homework in WebAssign that you're going to be given, some of the questions will give you a frequency table where your data is not individual values, but rather it gives you the values along with their frequencies, letting you know that those values do not just occur one time, but that they occur multiple times depending on what the frequencies are. And then you'll be asked things like, what's the mean, median, mode, possibly standard deviation variance, maybe even do a histogram. So I'm just going to walk you through how to, in SPSS, which is of course the software we're using in here, you've definitely got plenty of tutorials. The link to those tutorials is in course materials, so make sure you're looking through those regularly. You don't, as we get to the harder stuff throughout the course, you don't want to be caught to where you haven't gotten through the learning curve of SPSS. So you really ought to be browsing through each of those tutorials week to week so that by the time we get to the project assignments that you're somewhat familiar with the software. Otherwise, I'm just going to give you a quick it's basically, this video is a quick sort of shortcut to putting in frequency tables, because some of the ones in the tutorials I noticed take you a roundabout way to do other things, and while that's going to be important for other things that you're asked to do, if all you really need to do is enter a frequency table and calculate descriptive statistics, then what I'm getting ready to show you is pretty quick and easy. Alright, so let's just go ahead and first assume that I have some sort of ranking scores. Maybe I gave people something to taste and said rank these from 1 to 5. All right. So the first thing is, when you go into SPSS, it's going to maybe give you a big box that has fancy looking stuff. Just X out the box. And when you X out that box, it takes you to this basic spreadsheet screen, and you're going to automatically be in data view. But in order to begin to enter information about the variables that you have for your data, then you need to click down here on variable view. And then I'm going to go ahead and enter the name of my variable, which is scores. And once you click scores and then put your mouse over here and just click in that box, it will auto-populate all this stuff. Since my scores are just going to be whole numbers like 1 through 5, I'm going to click on decimals and go down to 0, letting it SPSS know that the values are just going to be whole numbers. And then over here to measure, it's numerical, so I'm going to click on this and click on scale. Y'all remember our scales of measurement, and we've got ratio and interval, which are both going to be recorded as scale in SPSS, and then we've got ordinal and nominal. Well, this is scale because scores are numerical. All right, that's really all you need to put in there. Then, since I'm going to be entering frequencies, I click in this next box, put frequency. Again, click in this cell to auto-populate. My frequencies are also going to be whole numbers, so I'm going to drop down and just put it down to 0. And frequencies need to also be recorded under the scale measurement. All right, now I'm ready to go to data view down here. And again, let's just suppose our scores were 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now what I'm doing in data view is entering the information just as it would have looked in a frequency table if I had drawn the frequency table by hand and put a column for the scores and a column for the frequencies. So I'm just going to make up some numbers here. Let's suppose I have 2 and 8 and say 5 and 1 and then 4. All right. So now various things. I'm going to want to get it to actually analyze the information. But what I've got to do is tell SPSS that these are weights. Otherwise, it thinks that I've really got 2 different variables going on here, like height and weight. But I just want SPSS to know that these frequencies are really just the weights of each of these scores, that frequencies are not, it's not a separate variable. So you need to come to this thing that looks like a scale up here. Click on this, and we are going to want to take the scores and weight them. So I need to click on weight the cases by, and then in this box I need to tell it where my frequency column is. So put frequency and arrow over here and click OK. And it's going to tell me that it has weighted them by the frequency. Now what I'm going to do is come up here to Analyze, and I'm going to go to Descriptive Statistics, and I'm going to go ahead and go over here to Frequencies. And since scores is really the only variable that I'm interested in analyzing, I'm just going to take scores and arrow over. I'm then going to click on Statistics, and I can click on whatever I need. If all I need is mean, median, mode, that's fine. If I need my standard deviation, variance, and range, that's fine. If I want quartiles, like Q1, Q2, and Q3, or if I need certain percentiles, it'll do a lot of stuff for you. You probably won't need all of these things checked, but you may want, you're definitely going to want the things in particular, whatever the homework question or project questions ask for. And then I'll go ahead and click Continue. And let me click on Chart and click on Histogram. And then click Continue. And then click OK. Now, what you will notice if we scroll down, here where it says scores is pretty much what my frequency table would have looked like, or at least these first two columns, what they would have looked like had I drawn it by hand. The ranking score 1 had a frequency of 2. The score of 2 had a frequency of 8. And remember, I had called those out when I was entering my data. It lets me know that there are 20 total scores, and it gives me the percentages of each, which is nice because really, y'all, percentages are relative frequencies. Although typically relative frequencies are thought of in decimal form, but otherwise relative frequencies are known as the percentages. So like a relative frequency of 0.10 would be a percent of 10%. It just depends on what format they want it in and whether they want a decimal or a percentage, but these are really your relative frequencies. So you have your frequencies, and then you have your relative frequencies because each of these is relative to the whole. If you were to take the 2 out of 20, 2 divided by 20, that's where they're getting the 10%. Then up here, notice, we have the mean, the median, the mode. It's easy to check the mode because our highest frequency was 8, and it does occur and correspond with category 2. So a ranking score of 2 was the most commonly occurring value with a frequency of 8. But it already automatically did all this for me. It gave me my standard deviation, my variance, my range, my percentiles, and whatever else I would have clicked on. Then we scroll down here a little farther, and notice it's given me my histogram, and that's because I had checked off the chart tab. So at 1, notice the bar goes up to a frequency of 2. 2 went to a frequency of 8, 3 went to a frequency of 5, and so forth based on the numbers I had put in. So that was just it's a fairly nice, simple thing to do, but of course it's one of those things that it sure helps to have someone just walk you through and show you visually what to click on to get it. So I will be asking y'all in the discussion 2 this week to not only talk about the relative frequencies, but to push yourself to get out there and begin to explore SPSS. So hopefully you'll just have watched this video and then give yourself some practice time, and we'll be starting to get through that learning curve of SPSS.